So we've got Drew and Nathan here. They are from Camp Canaan, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their summer camp counselor positions. So I'll just let you guys go ahead and get started, and then at the end we'll take some questions.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for letting us do this. After I read your email, Stephanie, I was thinking about how cool this would be for, all colleges who are recruiting to do, even outside of, just the situation we're facing now. Like it's a great idea to do a live thing for whoever's available, and then also have a recording, for anybody who asks questions, just to be able, even just to put a name to a face, and when I see Walt and Kyra apply later this week, I'll know who they are. So,
good to see some faces.
Yeah. But do you go by Walter, or do you go by Walter?
Walt.
Okay, cool. And what year are you at Southern Wesleyan?
Sophomore, apparently soon to be junior.
Okay, cool. And is it Kira or Kyra?
It's Kyra. I'm actually surprised you got it right. Kyra.
I gotcha, yeah. And what year are you at Southern Wesleyan?
I'll be a senior this year.
Okay, nice. And what's both of y'all's majors?
Religion.
I am psychology, and I'm minoring in ministry.
Okay, awesome. Well, that through the past couple months of recruiting, it's interesting to see the different majors that apply to work at a summer camp. And it's everything from business majors to psych majors to ministry. It's not, camp industry is not necessarily a field that applies to only one major. So it's fun to see the diversity with you two, and then also the people who we've met at different universities over the past couple months. But I just want to give a quick, rundown of what Camp Canaan is for you guys, and then also for anybody who views the recording later on. And then I'd love to answer questions. I'm much more of a person who likes to answer what you have on your mind, rather than me trying to think about what you're thinking about and answer that ahead of time. So the 5-minute rundown about camp is we are a 501c3 nonprofit Christian summer camp. We're not affiliated with any church or denomination, especially. Our former executive director and our current executive director, both have attended various denominational churches. I myself attend a rather large non-denominational church here in South Charlotte. We're about 20 minutes from the town of Charlotte, North Carolina, and Rock Hill, South Carolina. So pretty close to a lot of church area in the South here. But we started in 2003. Camping in the front yard of the camp house here on property. Probably only 10 to 15 kids a week sleeping in tents and cooking out of the kitchen of the camp house, which was pretty wild. And then in 2009, we got the money needed to build our first buildings, which are 2 large cabins, and then also what we call the multi-purpose building. So 2009 was kind of the start of actual camping, where we had beds to sleep in and a building to cook food. And then Nathan, you correct me if I'm wrong. Did you start in 2009 or 2010?
So I started in 2009.
Okay.
So I was a camper, and then I moved my way to counselor just because I've loved camp. I love being at this camp for that long. So.
Yeah. So Nate's actually been here longer than I have. This will be my 6th year at camp. So he's seen it grow more than I have. But from 2009 to 2016, we were, about 3/4 sold out every summer. Always had some space available. We were doing new things, doing fun things, but just could not ever get over that hump of being sold out. And then in 2017, we decided as an organization to pay off all of our debt to just honor God and what he's given us. And we paid off the last penny of debt. And then 2018 and 19, we were sold out with 400 kids on the wait list. So
Wow.
it was super cool to see that and just see that through honoring God and through just trusting him, that camp will sell out and we'll actually be, in a better place because of it. So we've continued to grow every year. We have about 180 kids on the property every day. There's around 120 day camp kids, and then about 60 to 70 overnight kids. between the campers themselves, what we call counselors in trainings or CITs, and then what we call assistant counselors or ACs. So between all the college-age counselors and campers, there's around 220 or 230 people on the property on any given day. We see about 1,400 kids per summer through the 9 weeks of summer camp. And some of those can be kids that come every week of the summer because their parents use camp as childcare, basically. Or it could be kids who just get a special week to come to camp. You know, their grandparents paid for a week of camp for them. And that's the only special thing they get to do this summer. So we see a lot of variety from wealthy kids to lower income kids. And then we also run a scholarship program through Canaan where we scholarship about 60 kids every summer, up to a 75% scholarship. So it's a super awesome time, super blessed to be here and see the growth over the past 5 summers. But we run day camp and overnight camp simultaneously for 9 weeks straight, starting the first week in June. And then we finished on August 7th, Friday, August 7th. So it's a fast and furious 9 weeks, but filled with slip and slides and zip lines and high adventure courses. And, you know, it doesn't seem like work at all. It seems like you're getting paid just to have fun and be outside. So, yeah, my role at camp is summer camp director. That's my actual title. I oversee a lot of the staffing, management of the staff, and then also do a lot of the planning and programming along with what we call lead counselors or directors. And Nathan is actually a lead counselor. That's why I had him join us today. He's one of the lead counselors of the resident camp program, which is the overnight program. So I'll have him share in just a little bit. But day camp has their own leads and their own directors that facilitate the day-to-day activities kind of under my supervision. And then we also have an executive director whose name is Matt Harper, who's actually one of the founders of camp. And now he's transitioned over the past, 16 years from adventure manager to business manager to executive director. So that's where we're at currently as an organization.
Great.
Yeah.
Did you want to share some of your stuff with us from your website or things right now?
Yeah,
Or?
definitely. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. I'll screen share with you. Let's go. Just let me know. I'll try to play this video and see if it's grainy or anything. Just let me know and then we can just stop it. But it's just a 2-minute long video about what camp is through the activities. This is what we call Morning Madness, where we just do our games and skits and songs every morning for about 45 minutes. These are our spray grounds. So we have 3 of these large inflatables that we just fill with soap and water pretty much every day. We're right on the south end of Lake Wiley. And so we can go tubing, and we do a water sports program also for our overnight kids. This is archery tag. I don't know if you guys have heard of archery tag yet. This is one of our staples at camp. We have a 9 zipline canopy tour that goes back and forth across the Catawba River 6 times. So it's a super fun activity. Junior day camp, which is ages 5 to 8. These guys are so imaginative that we do a lot of program stuff with them. Scavenger hunts, mining for gold, digging up fossils, and that was one of our dinosaur hunts where dinosaurs jumped out from under the bridge. Every day is pretty much full with adventure activities mixed in with meal times, and then we also do devotionals every day for day camp, and then in the evening resident camp has the opportunity to do more of like a sit down praise and worship session along with a camp speaker that comes every week. So a little bit more of your traditional like chapel time, so to speak, for resident camp. But we have pretty much, every adventure activity you can think of in the camp industry, which is super fun. But we also focus a lot kind of on this personal time, bonfires and s'mores, devotions in the evening with resident camp, and then also just being able to connect with each other, throughout the day. I just wanted to show you where the application link actually is on the website. If you go over to the contact tab and then scroll down just to employment, and you click on that employment tab, it's going to bring you to an employment page. that has a few of the current openings. And then if you just click on that big link right there, it's going to take you to a standard application. And on that application, you would just list of what you're most interested in, whether it was counselor, adventure guide, lifeguard. And then you can also put on there day camp counselor or resident camp counselor. So the map. Okay, so the map is super cool. We are a true island. There's only one bridge on, one bridge off, and we're surrounded by the Catawba River all the way around. But yeah, as you come onto the island, I'm sitting right here at building number 1, which is what we call the Welcome Center. And then the island is basically just spread out across 100 acres. The buildings number 4 and 5 are the cabins and the multi-purpose building that I was telling you about. Those were the first buildings built in 2009. And then everything else, the pool, the zip line, the basketball court, the soccer field, all that stuff has just kind of been added over the past 10 years. And we're slowly starting to fully develop the island. But it's super fun. We always tell people we work off the coast of Rock Hill, even though, we're not off an ocean or anything, but we're right in the middle of a river surrounded by water, no matter where you look. So it kind of feels like you're secluded, even though Starbucks is only 5 minutes away.
Go, Kara.
I was wondering what ages are the campers usually? Like, what does it range from?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. So junior day camp is ages 5 to 8, and those guys do a lot more of the thematic program-based activities. Senior day camp is ages 9 to 14, and they do a lot of adventure activities. They do a ton of the zip lines, the high adventure course, the kayaking, but they also do a little bit, of the scavenger hunts, and every now and then we do a big Hunger Games day where we put a bunch of Nerf guns in the middle of the field, and they do Hunger Games for a day. And then within resident camp, those kids are ages 10 to 13. So that's the overnight program. They check in on Sunday and stay all the way through Friday night. More of your traditional overnight camp, whereas the day camp comes at 7:30 in the morning and leaves at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we also do what we call a teen leadership program, and that's for ages 14 to 16. And they meet at camp on Saturday, but then they go off and they go backpacking on the Appalachian Trail or over in Western North Carolina, and they're gone for 6 nights, just backpacking, whitewater kayaking, rock climbing, all that sort of stuff. So we don't even see them on the property really. And Nathan's been on those trips too, so he can tell you about that.
Yeah, those trips are so much fun, especially the teen leadership camp, which Drew just talked about, going on the Appalachian Trail. Kind of sparked my desire. I go to Western Carolina University, and so going through that backpacking on the Appalachian Trail and being in such a small group, just creating relationships, that really sparked my interest to going into the outdoor industry. And so I'm a Parks and Rec management major at Western Carolina, and so going through Camp Canaan, being a camper, but then being a counselor, really shaped my view and outlook of what I wanted to do after college and going into the summer camp ministry in that area, or going on staff with a college ministry. So I'm still up in the air. I'm really excited for this summer. Hopefully COVID-19 says goodbye, so that we can actually be together. But yeah, I would totally just tell you to heavily consider being a camp counselor at Camp Canaan. It's going to be a ton of fun. I haven't been out here in two years. I've been a part of a college ministry called Campus Outreach. We were doing a leadership project, so I haven't actually been at camp in 2 years. And so I am really excited to be back as a lead for the first time. And so there's going to be a bunch of big energy. So it's going to be really, really fun. And I really hope that you guys consider applying and coming to work out here. It is a ton of fun. It really is a ton of fun. There's going to be some days, obviously you're working with kids, so it can be a little stressful, but it is so rewarding. And then just learning a lot about myself and learning a lot about how to communicate with other people, how to incorporate team leadership and team bonding. And it really set me up for how to make relationships in college and then outside of college. So yeah.
So right now, y'all are still planning to do camp?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
full steam ahead.
Yeah, I mean, our thought behind it, we're part of what the Christian Camp and Conference Association, the 3CA. And so they kind of have weekly meetings on updates in the camp industry. Everybody's kind of trying to wait till the beginning of May before we make any permanent decisions. We don't want to make any decisions too early that will negatively impact camp or the families planning to attend camp. But we also don't want to make any decisions too late. So beginning of May is kind of the timeline right now that most camps across the nation are considering making decisions. But we would rather plan as if we're going to have camp and then have to, just refund kids rather than not plan on camp and then everything be perfectly fine in June. So yeah, well, we're still planning on camp. And everybody that we've hired so far, we've just given them, kind of the understanding of like, come beginning of May, we'll send out a group email or a group text with updates. All right, so can you guys see the screen all right?
Yep.
Okay, so we start staff training on Friday, May 29th at 5 o'clock, and then dinner will be our first kind of get together. And then we do staff training all the way till that next Friday, June 5th, so a full 7 days. Then everybody will have Saturday off. And then on Sunday, June 7th, the co-ed resident camp starts. And then on Monday morning, the 8th, day camp starts. And then basically for 9 weeks straight, anywhere you see those green bars is a week of camp. And then we end on Friday, August 7th.
And you said you're hiring for 7 positions this summer, is that right?
Yeah, we are. So we hire 22 counselors every summer and about 12 to 14 adventure guides. The adventure guides are those who are leading the zip line, leading the kayak trips, the high adventure course. And the counselors help facilitate that stuff when they bring their kids, but the adventure guides are the ones that are, responsible for the safety and the technical skills of that. So we've hired about 13 or 14 counselors right now and still looking for 6 or 7. And then we also hire 4 lifeguards every summer. So we're looking for 2 more lifeguards. And then I think we need 6 more adventure guides at the current moment. Yeah, and one thing we tell people too is, if you're hired as a counselor, but you have a skill set in something else, which might be lifeguarding or doing adventure, or even maintenance and stuff like that, we can plug you in different areas of camp. You could be a counselor for a couple weeks and then maybe transition to lifeguard if something happens. People get sick every summer, which, we try to prevent as much as possible, but sometimes you get pulled in to help somewhere else. So the camp atmosphere is flexible in general, and you have to be in order to be able to manage 180 kids every day.
Can I ask what precautions are you guys taking, any steps for COVID-19, prevention or treatment, or what steps are you guys taking if camp is to go on, as far as nursing staff and things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're kind of still talking about that right now. We do weekly board meetings with our board, and then also, like I talked about, with the 3CA. But one thing is just continual cleaning. Camp in general is we try to clean every day after every meal, door handles, tables, bathrooms. That's a counselor responsibility anyways. But on top of that, with COVID-19, we're hoping to increase that, maybe have some outside staff come in just to clean. They're not counselors, they're not lifeguards, they're just basically cleaners for the day. And then also we're talking with one of our kind of head nurses who kind of gives us the lay of the land in the nursing world about just kind of potentially doing like an intake procedure as kids come for resident camp. Like we already do lice checks every Sunday. So we have a lice company that checks all the kids and they get checked off. And then, so we're talking about just adding maybe a temperature check to that and any sort of medical history check, making sure there's no, any of the symptoms of COVID-19 present before they get to camp.
You showed the schedule and it looked nonstop.
Yeah.
What do breaks look like for staffers?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. We've slowly changed things over the years to try to help facilitate burnout and facilitate, the monotony of being a counselor day after day. So this year, one of the new things we're implementing is 2 lunch breaks every week, where you can come down to our camp house, which overlooks the river. There's a huge back deck. and just be able to have lunch away with you and 4 other counselors. So we've set up a rotation where counselors get to come down for 45 minutes twice a week and have lunch by themselves. And then that fridge will also have candy bars and soda and stuff for free for you guys, you know, to just rejuvenate. And then also 2 mornings where we do our pre-morning meetings at 7 o'clock every day. And Nathan can tell you, it gets a little, you know, you're tired sometimes at 7 o'clock, especially because you got to wake up at 6:30 and brush your teeth and just walk down. But we're doing 2 mornings where we're not going to ask you guys to come till like 8:30 or 9 o'clock, just so you can sleep in, have a leisurely breakfast, and then show up to, you know, the first activity rather than having to be there right away in the morning. And a unique thing about camp is we get done Friday night around 7 o'clock. And if you're working as a day camp counselor, you technically don't have to start work again till Monday morning at 7. So you have a full Saturday, Sunday off, which is super rare in the camp world. The camp I came from before Canaan, you know, we got off Saturday at 1 and had to be back Sunday at 12. So it was a 23-hour time off period. But
Right.
we asked that resident counselors come back at 1 o'clock on Sunday because kids start showing up at 3 o'clock. So a lot of the local staff go to kind of one of 3 main churches in the area. And so, you know, as far as like car rides and going to church together, it's a super cool environment to be able to share that with other counselors, and then grab a quick lunch and be back to camp by 1 o'clock. And that's only if you're a resident camp counselor. But we do ask that day camp counselors come back Sunday evening so they can, you know, be on property and get rested in order to start Monday morning.
Another cool thing about being a day camp counselor, if you have that, if you're interested in doing the ropes courses, if you're interested in doing like the zip line guiding, you have the opportunity to do that on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Am I right, Drew?
Yeah.
So that's a really cool thing that, like, you're already on camp, and then it's just another way to experience another part of camp that you may or may not get to participate in or get to be a guide for. So I think that's an awesome opportunity for y'all.
Yeah, and what Nate's saying is we allow you guys to use the fun stuff of camp, you know, as staff on the weekends, as long as you just get permission from me or our program director. If you want to take the stand-up paddle boards up to the lake and paddleboard around the lake, if you want to float on the tubes down the Catawba River and go get food down at the end of the river, there's a restaurant down there. And then, you know, throw the tubes in your car and drive back. You're more than welcome to do that. So we just want to make sure we know where staff are and what you've taken and that you bring it back. But we want you guys to have fun on the weekends and get some rest. We have established kind of like a seasonal summer salary. So it comes in as a biweekly paycheck just because we know people have bills they might have to pay, car payments, student loans, things like that. But what we've done is set up the summer with a $2,750 base salary for a first-year counselor. What that looks like is every paycheck, it's $375. And then on the last paycheck, you get the $375 plus just what we call a commitment bonus of $500. So your last paycheck of the summer is that bigger, you know, $875 paycheck. Just saying, like, thanks for being committed for the summer. But $2,750 for a first-year counselor plus the food and lodging. And then second, third, and fourth-year counselors, you know, they all get a little pay bump per week. So second, third, and fourth-year counselors might make anywhere, you know, closer to $3,000 or just over $3,000 for the summer. So we try to be, you know, competitive in the Southeast. And also, you know, camp is not an industry where you get rich by any means. But it's an industry, you know, where you get to minister to kids and hopefully get paid some to do that while you're having fun. So one of the main things is just that applicants are teachable and willing to learn. We don't want somebody coming to camp who thinks they know everything. You know, they're an expert at this, they're an expert at that. They've worked at camp for 30 years, so they know how camp runs. You know, camp is different no matter where you go. It's the same general principle, but every property has different policies. Every camp has different philosophies. So we just like teachable, approachable, and willing to learn people who can, you know, show up to staff training on day one with kind of no preconceived notions and just say, like, hey, I'm here for 7 days. teach me what you guys do at Canaan, and then I can take that and apply it to what I already know and just use that, to further my abilities. So, and we always tell counselors too, nobody is qualified to work here through our experience or through our education. We just feel that God calls you to work at camp in order just to qualify you through your experience at camp and through your ministering to kids. So our current executive director, he thought, he was going to be a business major and do business in the future. And then when his friends told him, hey, we want to start a camp together, he's like, man, I know nothing about camp. And our former executive director said, well, you don't need to know anything about camp. You just need to be able to have fun with kids. So 16 years later, he's now the executive director.
I'd say the good thing, like, camp is what the counselors make it. So, like, if you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it just for the money, just kind of get through, like, hopefully have, like, a little fun here and there, then it's not going to be as fun of as an experience. But if you're there for the reasons to get to pour into these kids, to get to just have a lot of fun and make it like what the counselors want it to be, like, this is our time to shine. It's like these students being able to pour into the kids, and so it's as fun as we make it.
I have one more question. If you
Okay.
want to apply to be a lifeguard or one of the ropes course people, do you have to be certified before you apply to that, or do you get certified through the training?
Yeah, you don't have to be certified. I mean, some people that apply to be lifeguards want to go ahead and get it just because they have nothing else to do during the spring. And so, they do a weekend course at the YMCA or a local pool complex near them. As far as the adventure guiding goes, we do that during staff training week. So if you're applying to be an adventure guide for the summer, during staff training, you'll participate in some of the activities that the counselors are doing. But most of the time when the counselors break off to do kind of summer camp theme stuff, all the adventure guides go with our program director, and he'll, teach you how we do the high ropes course or the climbing tower. All the adventure guides will go on a river trip together. So you'll all get in a kayak and you'll do the river trip. That way you kind of know, the spots that are safe to swim at and the spots where there's logs under the water and things like that. So that's what that 7 days is used for, is training counselors and adventure guides. So you don't have to have any experience coming into it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and then some of our adventure guides, if the climbing tower is 45 feet tall and then the zip line is 70 feet tall. And so a lot of our adventure guides are like, hey man, I love adventure, but 70 feet, that's not for me. And so there's plenty to do for adventure guides who don't love heights, or vice versa. If they don't like water, but they're okay with heights, you don't have to go on kayaking trips. There's plenty to do on property. So we kind of take the 12 adventure guides we hire, figure out their strengths and weaknesses, and then kind of place them where we know they're going to, serve best.
What's the dynamic between day camp and resident camp?
Yeah, let me give you a 2-minute rundown, and then I'll let Nate actually answer too, because he's been, an actual counselor. I've never been a counselor at camp. So, but our day camp staff are technically, on the clock from 7 a.m. until when the last kid leaves, which is typically around 5:15 or 5:30. Past that time, yes, you are on the property, and yes, you still kind of have, a moral obligation and responsibility to like be a good staff while you're here. You still have to abide by all the policies and procedures, but we're not asking you to necessarily like lead a group of kids in an activity at night. We might ask you, if everybody's going to the pool, just to go to the pool and sit on the side to have an extra set of eyes at the pool, but we're not going to put you in the lifeguard stand or, force you to get in the water just because you're a day camp counselor. So we want the day camp to be able to rest a little bit at night, because during the day, the dynamic difference between the two camps is pretty considerable in terms of like kind of the fast pacedness of day camp. Because day camps, everything's crammed into 8 hours, whereas resident camp has, a 12 or 13-hour day to kind of spread things throughout. And so day camp counselors typically tend to be a little more tired at the end of the day. Resident camp counselors get an hour break after lunch that we call cabin time. And so you can go back to the cabin, rest, relax, play cards. The kids are allowed to play ping pong on the front porch of the cabin, but they're not allowed off the cabin porch. So resident camp kind of has that more even keel throughout the day, whereas day camp, you just go, and then at 5:30 you're done, you know. So we try to give those day camp counselors a break. And then that's why we also do adventure guides, so that you as a day camp counselor don't feel the weight and the stress of being responsible for their safety while they're on a zip line, as you're also trying to watch them and manage them. You know, we leave that up to the adventure guides, and you're just there as the counselor to help facilitate. So Nate, what would you say, you know, as a day camp counselor, and I know you've spent some time in resident camp also, what would you say is the big difference besides just the pace of it?
Yeah, well, I think you hit it dead on. I mean, being a day camp counselor, it is a lot compact into like one day. And so after that 5 or 6 o'clock, whenever you technically get off, you do have the opportunity to just sit down, relax, just kind of be either by yourself or with the other day camp counselors, like go somewhere else on the island and just really just chill out. Or if you would like to join in on some of the resident counselor or the resident camp stuff, like the opportunity is there for you as well. And so I would say not every time just after your 5 o'clock saying, see ya, I'll see y'all tomorrow at 7 o'clock. But it creates a better dynamic if sometimes we see the day camp counselor hop in with the resident camp to do some big Rambo game or something like that. So it just creates a better dynamic, because some kids will say like, oh, there's Walt. What's up, man? Like, even though they're in day camp, they see you in resident camp, or their resident camp see you in day camp, stuff like that. So
expecting, you know, if things clear up, that first week of camp in June is just going to be over the top. You know, and the counselors, like Walt was just saying, the counselors are going to be ready to do stuff too. You know, they're going to be ready to get out of their college dorm rooms or their family's house back home. So it's gonna be a wild June, that's for sure.
It is. Well, listen, I know we are trying to keep these meetings as much as we can to around 30, 45 minutes. So I think unless there's any other questions, Stephanie, do you agree? You think we're good to wrap up here? Okay.
So, good. Thank you guys so much for allowing us this opportunity. And if anybody has questions, you know, our emails are just super simple. It's our first name, Drew@campcanaan.org. So feel free just to shoot me a quick email.